I don't know how I want to structure the intro of this video, but there's like three things that I want to talk about. So I'm just going to wing it. So I'm going to start with the Tony has died stuff. This is going to be my final time mentioning this because after I released the video, some time had passed. He ended up direct messaging me and we talked about why it's wrong for him to have done what he did towards death sentence. He ended up getting unblocked by death sentence and issued an apology to him, made an official post and kind of walked back all of the things that he had said before. I think this is good and it's progress as well. I even saw his face too. This guy had sent me a picture of himself. And I kind of was hoping that this would be the end of it. But later on that day, this guy, he added me to a group chat with a bunch of other like people. And they were like, I guess trying to antagonize me. I didn't even join the group chat. It was just like sitting in my requests. But I was reading through it and it was filled with like the most abhorrent usernames I've ever seen. Like holy or even like was one of them too, and it just kind of reaffirmed exactly what I was talking about. These closet racists also said that I look like Luana Carolina as well, which from the perspective of facial structure isn't even accurate. We're just both have dreads and brown skin. Basically, what this group chat was consisting of were a group of like his friends like roasting him for taking back the things that he had said and calling him weak for not standing on his opinions that he had had initially, which that's not much of a stance to stand on. So I'm actually very proud of him for deciding to do the right thing in this instance and to not propagate that nonsense any longer. But it's sad because I know so much about this man that I just shouldn't know. Like there's like people from his high school that were reaching out to me and giving me information about this guy. I know his first and last name. I've seen full body photos of this guy. He's just a fat white dude and he's around like my age as well. And the reason why he's anonymous is because he goes to college and he says dumb shit, so he doesn't want to get thrown out of school for his takes. Which I mean, like, I don't say it, you know. But I'm sad for him because these are like his friends, and he belongs to a pack of wild dogs, and they're feeding me this information and they're telling me to dox him and they know him personally. They're sending me like photos of them all hanging out together and I don't ever want to be friends with people who do this type of thing and stir the pot. I'm never going to mention his name again. Other than there's this one guy who said that apparently he likes to eat McChickens with only ketchup on them. So that is, I will say ketchup McChicken and that's it. No more Tony has died stuff. Me, him, and death sentence, as far as I'm concerned, we're all square. But only real shit is gonna last. And that's what I want you guys to remember about this whole experience. The second thing, speaking of real shit, I said I wasn't gonna dox him, but I wanna be a bit more forthcoming with you guys about exactly who I am on this channel. I mean, I don't really see any problem with telling you guys like my name. It's not Beewolf. Believe it or not, I wasn't born to my mother as BeewolfMMA. My name is Micah and I'll put the spelling on the screen. So if you guys wanted to directly address me as my first name on my government ID, it's Micah. Like, I guess Beewolf is fine too, but my friends call me Micah. And as far as I'm concerned, all 800 of you guys are my buddies. So Micah is fine if that's what you guys would prefer. And then the last thing, I woke up this morning at 5 a.m. to watch my buddy Ricardo Sandoval fight in Japan against the WBO and WBC flyweight champion who is from that country. He won in Japan. So I watched him train for months and months and months leading up to this event. I am so proud of you, Ricardo, and I'm so happy that you're bringing these belts back home, and I know what it means to you. So I wanted to give you a shout out at the very beginning of this video. What I'm going to do now is talk about fights, and that's what this is all about. None of the drama, none of the bullshit. We're just going to talk about fights, and we're going to keep things pushing like nothing ever happened. Because, like I had said at the very beginning of the video, I don't like stewing in negativity, and I refuse to do it. So we in that UFC Apex Arena, boy, in Las Vegas, Nevada. On Saturday, August 2nd, we're about to watch Taira fight Hyun-Sung Park, a short notice fill-in for Amir Albazi, who was not cleared to fight. This is going to be the first all-Asian headlining main event, which is like pretty lit that they both get to be a part of this. This is a big event, and it wasn't even supposed to be this way, but here we are, you know? So I also want to express gratitude towards the fact that we're not getting to watch Waldo Cortez Acosta fight in the main event because we were this close. We were this close. Look at how close them bitches are. Them bitches are close. So, taking a visit to the canceled matchup graveyard, Amir Albazi versus Taira is not happening. We need to cut Amir Albazi a break because he has some heart or spine condition or maybe even a both type of deal where it's hard for him to get medically cleared to fight. He does not deserve people lashing out at him or coming after him. People say like, yeah, we cut Mikhail, but we let Amir Albazi stay. It's like, I feel like there might actually be like workplace laws in place, so like he could sue the UFC if they cut him after they acknowledge his health stuff and they gave him a contract. And they're just like, nah, actually, your heart murmur is just making you less desirable to us now. So you be gone. He could sue them, I think. So to avoid a class action lawsuit, he has to stay on the roster. And it's not like he completely sucks. This dude was holding like a really high position in the rankings at one point. It's just not really the most fan-friendly style, but I'm praying for him. I really hope that he is able to get better with whatever he's struggling with right now. Another fight that's not going down is going to be Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Taliesin Teixeira. Waldo Cortez Acosta got on Twitter and he was talking about Taliesin Teixeira said that his nose has a little owie and that's the reason why he's not able to fight. Dude, he got slept by Derek Lewis on July 12th, and that's like 18 days ago. And there used to be a knockout protocol, which they just did away with. How could he make this quick of a turnaround? Why did anybody even put this on the table? Unless he asked for it, which, I mean, he didn't because he declined it, so you don't get to do that. No, shame on you. You better keep training for Sergey. So here, we're just gonna get right into it. The prelims, they're gonna start with Piera Rodriguez versus Ketlen Souza. And I'm still in the process of figuring out exactly how I want to format these slides. People said that the left side of the screen was a bit too cluttered, and I agree. So I have snatched away my notes, and where they're hiding now in my setup, I'll never tell. But what I've replaced them with now is this much cleaner looking graphic table of some stats surrounding the fighters, and it'll be this way for all the slides. So that'll chill there, and I'm just going to talk about the matchups as we go through the different parts of the presentation. But Piera Rodriguez, this is Headbutt Girl, and she got disqualified in a fight against a woman by the last name of Carnelosi after she was winning pretty dominantly throughout 2 rounds, and then the referee gave her a warning about something that she had been doing, maybe like downwards elbows, and then she headbutted the woman, and then got the fight DQ'd, and she lost it whenever she was winning. So she's not horrible, Piera Rodriguez. I would say that she's competing right below mid-level for this division. She's nowhere near like a Tabitha Ricci for women's strawweight, but I mean, who is, you know? Tabitha Ricci is everything. But if she never got DQ'd by Carnelosi, she'd be 4-1 in the UFC, and her only loss would be coming to Jillian Roberts by getting out-grappled by her, which, I mean, Jillian Roberts. Jillian Roberts is pretty solid for this division, so better girls have also lost to Jillian Roberts. You know, Marina Rodriguez, Molly McCann. Ricci, though, Maverick, and Barber, they all won fights with her, so I would say that Jillian Roberts is kind of a good metric. If you do beat her, you do maybe have a chance of advancing into the upper echelons of women's strawweight, but if you do lose, then you're likely just a mid-level fighter. So nothing wrong with that. Somebody's got to fill those roles. One of the things that makes Piera Rodriguez kind of mid is her IQ issues, but they're stemming from hyper-aggression, which isn't a bad thing. It'd be more of an issue if she just didn't do anything in the cage, but she's a very angry lady, and I dig it. Ketlen Souza, she can kind of be caught sleeping at the wheel, and it kind of makes my decision to pick Rodriguez pretty worrisome, for the fact that Ketlen Souza was born with this lock-in genetic to where she could lose a bunch of a fight like she was against Yasmin Uregi. She was whooping that. And then Yasmin Uregi just got knocked out randomly, knocked down with a really big shot, and then Ketlen Souza just jumped the back and choked her. So it could very well go like this. But the thing that I don't really like about Ketlen Souza is the fact that she got split decision by Angela Hill, and Angela Hill always loses split decisions, so the fact that she won one over Ketlen Souza is kind of fishy to me, and that was her most recent performance too. Ketlen Souza, she's going to lose rounds trying to carefully pick her shots out, and Piera's going to cut off the cage to try and wrestle. Souza's game plan generally is to wait to 50-50 in exchanges with women and then maybe land something big like she did against Yasmin Uregi, but if the opportunity never comes, she's just going to lose the fight. And it'll be close, yeah, but she'll never do anything that's like super big. And speaking of 50-50, Souza was caught by Corinne Silva in a Z-lock submission. This is maybe one of the nastiest leg lock techniques I've ever seen in my life, and I just really become privy to it. This happened to her in 2023, and Ketlen Souza lost all of her CLs in her knee with this submission. I think it was her left one. Her ACL, MCL, PCL, LCL, they all turned into gummy worms whenever Corinne Silva locked up this Z-lock. And dude, this wasn't even the first time that I've seen this technique. It was just recently the first time that I'd seen it. It was in the B-Team Jiu-Jitsu gym, Craig Jones's squad, and it was this purple belt named Nora Schultz, and she was going against this guy named Liam, who was at the gym, and she Z-locked him, and he didn't realize how deep like the grip was. She like tucked his, like, it was completely malevolent what she did to this man. And what happens with the Z-lock is your leg bends outwards, and like your ACL on the inside just gets completely separated from both of your knees. So gross, dude, and it looks so nasty, and you know if there's damage that gets done there. So I mean, she has come back and won. Ketlen Souza, this was 2 years ago, and she did win at the Sphere like a year later. So I'm not gonna say that the knee injury is going to be hindering her ability to do anything. We've seen other guys come back from ACL injuries, like me, BeewolfMMA. I'm gonna come back from my ACL injury. I'm gonna fight again. And you better mark my words. Regardless of that, I'm still going to pick Rodriguez to win a decision in this fight. The next one is going to be Rafael Estavam versus Felipe Bunes. Both have good jiu-jitsu. It's just that Estevam's game is really patient and he doesn't hit hard at all. In order to be viable in this division, this guy has to have seriously made strides with his striking, because his grappling, he's just a back control guy. He has no power, and he's always flowing to this back sitting position and just holding it. Not really doing much, maybe some pitter-patter shots from the back, but it's just pure control. It's the same way that Jose Aldo had beaten Chito Vera in their fight. For as much as people hate on Mario Batista for what he did to Jose Aldo, people never acknowledge the Aldo fight with Chito Vera, where he literally just wrapped up a body triangle and sat in the back sitting position and did nothing for a whole round and won that way. Jesus Aguilar was Rafael Estevam's last win, and this guy literally sold so bad. He was beating the crap out of Rafael Estevam, and he was initiating grappling sequences. Or whenever Rafael Estevam would shoot on Aguilar, Aguilar would just pull guillotines thinking it was like Dustin Poirier or something. And he should have just stayed on the kickboxing, which was working. Felipe Bunes' grappling is kind of like a question mark, but we know that Rafael Estevam fades in round 3 since he only grapples. And we saw this in the Aguilar fight. And before, you guys aren't going to believe this, Estevam was the last dude to beat Charles Johnson before Ramazan Timarov. Before he went on that crazy streak where he like even beat Joshua Van. Rafael Estevam was the guy who beat him last. And this was in 2023. I like the style of Felipe Bunes. He made the first round against Joshua Van pretty competitive. He didn't do poorly in that fight. And I think that was also his debut too. He comes from a soccer background. So he is actually, I'm not even making a joke in saying this. He comes from like an actual, like he played like football in Brazil. So this guy, like, he's good at kicking. He has a really nice lead high kick. And it was slapping the guard of Joshua Van. He actually can hurt people with his hands too. He seems to be a finisher for many of his guards as well. Very solid kickboxing, as I just mentioned. He lost to Joshua Van, and then he got a fight with Jose Johnson, who's like this weight bully flyweight. He's like 6 foot tall. Felipe Bunes wraps up an armbar in like no time in this fight, and I think that he's a finisher for many different guards versus Rafael Estevam's only method of grappling being getting to the back and holding there. Felipe Bunes has a lot more finishing capabilities in this fight. So I think that Joshua Van would have been controlled in the clinch too if he didn't have hands like Daredevil. And that's why I think that Bunes likely gets this one done, because I really want to see the Kamehameha Selly again. He sauced on that weight bully and then threw a Kamehameha at the screen, bro. That was so lit. That boy Death Sentence always be posting Dragon Ball clips on his Instagram story too. So I'd be watching like a full episode of Dragon Ball Z a day just looking at Death Sentence's stories, bro. It's so funny. So yeah, I would say Bunes is going to take this one personally. The fact that Rafael Estevam is not going to want to be violent in this fight. He is going to push the pace and get to a TKO in round 3, likely dropping him in open range and then mounting to finish. Austin Bashi is going to fight John Yannis, and I'm sorry for those PDFs down at the bottom if they're distracting. I really couldn't find a better photo of John Yannis, and Austin Bashi was the only thing that really resembled that other PNG that I could find. Austin Bashi, he had all the hype in the world at featherweight. This is a Suckling prospect who's another one of these grappling specialists. There's a lot of crossover between Austin Bashi's game and Raul Rosas' game whenever he first showed up to the UFC. Bashi, he's going to need some striking or else he can't progress through this division. I think that he's going to guaranteed be a better grappler than Yannis. So if he didn't refine his game or develop a 1-2-3 or just any type of clinical combinations in the boxing or the kickboxing, he likely is going to be able to get away with just power doubling into the cage and elevating because he's pretty strong as a grappler. Yannis, he's good at stuffing the first shot on the cage, but if you disengage and let him work his boxing, that's whenever he can get himself back into a fight. But you can take him right back out of the fight after you disengage from the clinch and then re-enter on another takedown. And if you chain wrestle this guy, you can get him to the floor. If you recurringly attempt submissions as well, you can tap him as well. So that's why I'm thinking that Ryan Bashi is going to win this easy money and that it doesn't really matter whether or not he showed up his striking just because of the styles. Bashi is good at controlling the back. This is gonna be like a theme about a lot of the fighters on this card. These guys are all like jujitsu people, a lot of them, and they all like the back sitting position. There's some guys who like top guard and they try to advance into mount and they wrap up arm triangles or even side control, or they just smash in half guard. A lot of the grapplers on this card, they like to backpack people. They're like human backpacks. So Austin Bashi is another one of these guys. He's really good at this back control position, and this is one of the weakest positions of Yannis. Yannis fought this guy. He's from Fury FC. That's where he's debuting from. An opponent that he had was this dude named Gabriel Vanderlei. Gabriel Vanderlei is a very similar grappler to Austin Bashi. What he did was exactly what I described a little bit ago. He chain wrestled, and then once they got to the ground, he moved to the back and then kept on attacking RNCs and ended up getting the tap. Bashi suffered a defeat in his debut versus Christian Rodriguez, but it was only by decision. He didn't get finished, so there's hope for him. Maybe. It's kind of a coin flip because Cameron Simon also lost a decision to Christian Rodriguez, and then so did Raul Rosas. He knocked out Terrence Mitchell in his next fight after losing to Christian Rodriguez because he was a little bit in over his head. Cameron Simon just got a harder fight and Peyton Talbot got knocked out. And then an even harder fight against Malcolm Wellmaker. They're being very gracious with Austin Bashi by giving this guy a Fury FC debutant. Maybe John Yannis's combat master is Bruce Wayne himself, and he's going to come in here and piece up Austin Bashi. I don't see it happening personally. There's an opportunity for Austin to get his career back on track in the UFC. I think he will win via round 2 sub. The next fight, I am going to be predicting this one on relatively low confidence just because I really couldn't find a lot of footage on either fighter. They had their Contender Series performances and then their debuts, and they both lost some pretty underwhelming fights in their debuts. But the one thing that I will note is that in a fight between Nick Klein versus Andrey Pulyaev, Nick Klein has more of a proclivity to initiate. As I saw in his fight on the Dana White Contender Series against this dude named Geraldo Souza, Andrey Pulyaev, he fought against CLD, Certified Lover Duncan, Christian Leroy Duncan, and this was like an unwatchable fight. Between the two of them, neither of them wanted to be there, it looked like. Pulyaev just kind of let this one get away from him. CLD had a bunch of different opportunities to win the fight, but Certified Lover Duncan just didn't push for the finish. It just ended up being a boring decision. So if this type of output and performance out of Andrey Pulyaev is going to be consistent. Pulyaev does have some decent kicks, but he uses them really sparsely. He's too patient. And I think this is going to be a low-level fight where they're both going to clinch and gas in a total of 7 minutes. And that is unless Nick Klein gets to a finish early. And he could do that just by wrestling and destabilizing Andrey Pulyaev, who, even though he's Russian, didn't seem like he was doing much to defend the grappling. He can at least be clinched on the cage, because his opponent on the Contender Series was doing a whole lot of that to him. I really don't know how this guy got a contract out of his performance there. Klein, in his debut, he fought Mansour Abdul Malik, and they had a really boring fight. It was likely just because Nick Klein was afraid of getting knocked out. But once he realized that there was no immediate threat through the first round, he started kind of pushing the pace a little bit and being a lot more active than I ever saw Andrey Pulyaev be in his fight with Christian Leroy Duncan, or even on the Contender Series as well. If he does stand and wait, I think that it's very possible that Nick Klein does more, and Pulyaev just doesn't do enough. And it probably does end in a decision, but I want to, for some reason, just really believe in Nick Klein to get this one done by a round 1 sub. So that's what I'm going to select. I am not anticipating this fight to be very good at all. Unlike the next fight, which is low-key a sleeper banger, Rodolfo Viera versus Tresean Gore at middleweight, I've learned my lesson going to bat for jiu-jitsu guys after Marcus Buchecha last weekend. I get it. These guys, this is probably the worst background to come from. If you're like a pure jiu-jitsu athlete, I won't ever put stake in these guys ever again. I just thought maybe that the rule would be different just because we were at 265, but no. These dudes are cut from a Mickey Mouse baby Charmin Ultra Soft fabric, and I'm not going to choose them to win their fights against actual guys that display toughness and physicality. Tresean Gore is really tough. In his fight against Marco Tulio, he displayed a bunch of heart, great chin, and good attributes as well in other performances, like his fight against Josh Fremd, where he basically ripped the dude's spinal cord out of his chest like Sub-Zero with his guillotine across the cage. He's able to do these types of things because he's very physical, strong, and powerful when we're talking about the grappling and the striking. His ability as a physical specimen is something that's going to make up for his inexperience and lack of skill just because he hasn't fought that much. But he's still gaining really good experiences, and they're giving him good fights just to show that he is maturing in the sport. This is a good test for him, because if he doesn't come correct, he could get subbed on some really goofy stuff, and it could be really embarrassing for him. I don't think that it's going to happen, though. I think that Tresean Gore is about to lock in here. Just because historically, Tresean Gore has only displayed a real vulnerability to being KO'd, and that's how he's losing a lot of his fights. Cody Brundage knocked him out. Marco Tulio knocked him out. And then other than that, I think he just lost a decision to Brian Battle. So Viera has no fast switch, so he's not going to be able to spark this guy. And his fights with Chris Curtis and Andrey Petroski both proved this. Chris Curtis stuffed 20 out of 20 takedowns and just ripped up Rodolfo Viera's body. And that's such a funny number. 20 out of 20 attempts on a takedown from Rodolfo Viera were stuffed by Chris Curtis. And this man was getting punched into his stomach until like he looked like he was about to vomit. It was hilarious. That fight was funny. It's very possible that Tresean Gore does beat Rodolfo Viera by a decision this way. Viera is an IQ test, like I had said before. If you make good decisions and stay disciplined in the striking, easy money. The effort is ruined as soon as you try to ego him on the ground before you do significant damage to him. If Tresean Gore tries to wrestle or sub Rodolfo Viera fresh, that may land him in trouble. That is a bad mistake that he can make that will reflect inexperience, and he will pay direly for this. He has to beat him up first. I don't doubt that he will be able to do this because even Petroski was actually getting some good shots in on Rodolfo Viera. And he kind of gave the rest of the middleweight division the recipe on how to win cleanly against him. Sharp striking, defend the shots when they come, get back to striking. Very simple game plan. Tresean Gore is going to come out and execute beautifully and level up his career as a fighter in the UFC. The next fight that we're going to talk about, which is going to be the top of the prelims, Rinya Nakamura versus Nathan Fletcher. So, Rinya Nakamura on the road to UFC circuit looked like he was going to be like Judober. Like he was just going to be like a Japanese Judober and just be chinning everyone and having like these coconut bombs in his hand. A Manuel Torres-esque figure. A guy with a really high KO potency. And what happened was, after he won the road to UFC and he made his UFC debut, he just became allergic to hurting people with his hands. And he's a good wrestler, but he over-relied on his wrestling, which he's good at getting takedowns and holding people on the ground, but he's not good at actively advancing to positions to do damage from them. So he was just winning these stinky decisions. I think that he even got like Carlos Vera and then Fernie Garcia, I think was the other guy's name. He won via just smudging them into the canvas, and that's really not fun to watch, especially as I'm touting this guy to be this big KO dude. And I was making predictions even at this point. I was like, dude, Rinya Nakamura, dude, he's going to come out and knock these guys out. But his striking has not been looking good. He's been moving away from wrestling too, because I think the brass told him, like, you gotta stop wrestling or else we're going to cut you, buddy. Like, you're not on a forever contract here. Like, you got to be fun. So he's like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to get back to the striking. He lost his last fight, though, because of this. And he lost to Muin Gafarov, and he probably could have won the fight if he did wrestle, but he was in his own head thinking like, I'm going to get cut if I wrestle. I can't double leg. I have to strike with him. And he low-key got sauced on. So Nathan Fletcher, I think that Nathan can finish this fight against a gassed out Nakamura. And this was something that Gafarov wasn't able to do. Loughran got cut for winning a robbery against Nathan Fletcher. And that was because Loughran was at the end of his contract. He had lost to Jake Hadley before too, and he was truly 1-3 in the UFC instead of being 2-2 with this really sketchy decision that he'd been gifted over Nathan Fletcher. People were really pissed off about it. He should have beat him more soundly though, to be fair. But something that gives me Fletcher hope in this matchup against Rinya Nakamura is that Nakamura genuinely looks like he's just figuring it all out on the fly, or that he's just trying his best to create a game plan while he's in the cage. He's striking whenever he should wrestle. He's wrestling whenever he should strike. And that doesn't make much sense to me. I think that Nathan at least comes out with a game plan. So that's going to help him win this fight, in my opinion. So that's the reason why I want to pick him. Nathan Fletcher can more consistently make it to the end of 15 minutes without falling apart. He had some of his best moments in that fight with Kylan Loughran right before the fight ended in the last 30 seconds. And that's why everyone was like, what? How do you lose the third round? The judges had given the third round to Kylan Loughran whenever he had landed like more shots, more clean shots at least in the last 30 seconds of that fight than Kylan had in like pretty much the entire fight. So the thing that made it so that Nathan Fletcher was grounds for this robbery was the inability to stop the takedown. And Rinya Nakamura has problems with the striking, so their weaknesses are the other person's strength. Nathan Fletcher is just more of a incomplete fighter than Rinya Nakamura, and that's what's going to give him the edge in this. I feel like Rinya's just going to check out halfway through this. I can totally see Rinya Nakamura checking out at the midpoint of this fight. And especially if he wrestles, he's going to get lazy and he'll literally be ready to get subbed. And Nathan Fletcher will be able to do this. So to cover my trails, instead of predicting like a round 2 submission, because I think it'll take a little bit more time than that for Rinya Nakamura to completely exhaust himself, I'm going to select a round 3 submission for Nathan Fletcher. So now we're going to talk about the main card. Give us that big old toothy smile. Tatsuro Taira, let me see it. Let me see those chompers. To get us going, we have Danny Silva versus Kevin Vallejos. This will be a contest held at featherweight. This is one of the most hyped up prospect matchups on the internet, and it's not because of Danny Silva. It's purely because not Kevin Vallejos, Kevin Vallejos. I think that's how you pronounce it. I am not Argentinian, but I suppose that is the proper pronunciation because as I was doing research in the comment section, one of these AI YouTube channels that talks about MMA, an Argentinian fellow in the comment section was talking about Vallejos. No, it's Vallejos. So out of respect for him, I will pronounce his name properly. Kevin Vallejos. People are making out Vallejos to be like a diet Ilia Topuria, like Ilia Topuria Jr. And nobody's giving Danny Silva a single shot, but he has a chance to do something incredibly funny as a plus 330 underdog here. I'm not going to take the road less traveled by just because it doesn't really make sense to me, but once upon a time, Danny Silva derailed the Joshua Kulabau hype train, which was this one featherweight that they were trying to push to become the next big thing out of Australia. On the Volkanovski cards, or whenever they would go to Perth, they would have Kulabau fight somebody, and then he started losing a bunch. And Danny Silva, I think he was the first dude to beat him, so I was able to find some really good things on tape for Kevin Vallejos, and he's already made his debut against Sung Woo Choi. He has a missile of a right hand, Kevin Vallejos. This right hand, it sunk Sung Woo Choi's battleship super easily. They're slowly building this young fighter to be something at 145 pounds, and I agree with their decision to do it. Instead of pushing him right into the fray and having him take really big matchups, they went through this on the Contender Series. Gene Silva won a contract against this dude, but Kevin Vallejos made it to a decision against Gene Silva, and everybody's getting finished by Gene Silva. So that shows promise. That shows promise for the career of Kevin Vallejos. Being as young as he is, I think that his boxing style, it does resemble Topuria a bit. He just lacks the stopping power of Ilia, but he goes for the water in the basement type of approach where he's just ripping the body up and 50-50ing up high and low. This is very Ilia Topuria-esque, so I get the comparisons. And I would say that the only reason why Gene Silva was able to kind of play with Kevin Vallejos and not experience much threat returning from Kevin was because of the fact that Kevin Vallejos, I don't know how Ilia Topuria makes it work, because I could also say the same thing about him. They're both not very large 145ers. I mean, Ilia Topuria is definitely stronger than Kevin Vallejos, but Kevin Vallejos, at one point on the Argentinian regional circuit, the reason why he's a special fighter there is because he was a 3-division champion. He cut down to 135 to win a belt in the regional pro circuit in Argentina. He won the 145 belt in the same promotion and the 155 belt in the same promotion as well. And I think Eileen Perez and Francisco Prado had also come out of this organization as well before they made it to the UFC. Kevin Vallejos, he is not Ilia Topuria. The difference is his cage control and his defensive instincts. Gene Silva nearly finished him, but, I mean, it happens. He was evading and trying to exit straight off to one side. He got kneed and then ate like a really big hook on the exit. Ilia Topuria is going to swing his way out of those positions, and his back never really even touches the cage. He's the aggressor most of the time. It could just be a reflection of his lack of experience and his age as well. He's matured a bit, got a really good knockout over Sung Woo Choi that he's riding high off of. I think he's going to score another round 1 knockout here. It's pretty clear that he's here to do that, and that's what the organization wants him to do. That's what we all want him to do, so that's what I'm going to select. Next, we got Neil Magny versus Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. Neil Magny is an Apex legend like Gibraltar or like Bloodhound. Man, we've been through so much with Neil Magny. People want to make a joke about this being like a stoppable force versus a movable object, but Magny, he's been fighting the top contenders of the welterweight division as like a gatekeeper to see if they actually are who they say they are. Ian Gary, Carlos Prates, Michael Morales. This is his first like non-top 10 ranked fighter matchup that he's taken in like the last like 2 or 3 years. And in the middle of all of this, Magny has won fights against Mike Malott and Jeff Neal whenever everyone counted him out. So people also forget that Neil Magny gets like a plus 50 fight buff whenever he's in the Apex. He gets an elemental boost. My thing is that tricky fighters who come into a fight with Alessio Zaleski dos Santos with an angled strategy usually beat him. Dos Santos looked really bad against Chidio and Njokuani as well, and that guy's easy as pie if you grapple him, and that was displayed by Jake Matthews, who just took his back while he was standing and got the choke with no problems. No attempt at grappling was made by Alessio Zaleski dos Santos, and then he just got stopped. Randy Brown, he won that fight via eye pokes, but illegitimate in my opinion. I think that was kind of sorry. Randy Brown via bad reffing and the new gloves not working. I think this was like the old gloves that were meant to stop the eye pokes. And Joe Rogan at one point in the fight was like, yeah, these gloves don't work. Magny will at the very least preserve himself and win a stamina battle against Dos Santos where he will game plan like he's still fighting a top contender. Because this guy only knows how to fight like he's fighting with Carlos Prates or Michael Morales or Ian Gary. Zaleski Dos Santos is kind of like a gift to Neil Magny for surviving those fights. I think that Magny totally wins this. This is his first not impossible fight that he's taken since Phil Rowe in 2023. So I'm going to select him to win via round 3 sub. It'll take Zaleski Dos Santos to get tired and to make mistakes before Magny can search for a finish, but I think he can totally do it. My boy Neil Magny is going to win this fight, and then they're going to feed him to another upcoming contender. Next, we got Carol Rosa at number 10 versus Nora Cornell at number 12. This will be at women's bantamweight. This fight, the storyline is going to be Nora Cornell versus the scale because she'd be missing weight. I think you see it right there on the chart. Nora's sole loss in the UFC is against Jacqueline Cavalcanti, which is the best opponent either woman have fought. And I convinced myself a little bit ago that Jacqueline Cavalcanti, I still think that she can be champion, to be honest. It's just going to be difficult now that Kayla Harrison holds the belt. But even in that fight, I think it's competitive at least. It's a legitimate defense for Kayla Harrison since there's not a whole lot of bantamweights that deserve to be in that spot. Maybe Dumont as well. Remember Dumont beat the crap out of Irina Aldana, like opened her face and made her look like the Demogorgon. That was really nasty. Carol has been around for about 6 years, Carol Rosa, and she lost to an even mix of middle-of-the-road grapplers and strikers. Most recently to Eileen Perez, who has a similar style to Cornell, with less of a TKO or submission threat. So that kind of safely assures me in thinking that Nora Cornell probably wins this fight. Rosa does likely lose this fight and get finished, or maybe not. I'm going to be using Tinder, Bumble, or Hinge trying to get some play during this part of the event. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Nora Cornell is going to win this fight via round 2 TKO. The next fight that we're going to talk about is going to be Elvis Brenner versus Esteban Ribovic. This is going to be a fight at lightweight. Elvis Brenner, he seems super legit after a win over Guram Kudrladze at the peak of his hype. I think this was right after Damir Ismagulov, and this was like his next fight after then. And people were kind of already on the fence, but he hung out with Hamzat. So, like, you know, Georgian lightweight prospect, this guy has to be good, right? And Elvis Brenner came out and upset him, and everyone was like, oh my God, the shooter box lightweight is going to be, he's going to be the next Oliveira, and he's going to carry the shooter box mantle at the 155 division. And everyone loaded up the hype train for Elvis Brenner. He gets a fight with Oralbai, very violent. He lost the fight, though. And then it was close at the same time, and we didn't really know how good either of these guys were. Didn't have much context for what their careers were going to do afterwards, and really hadn't seen them compete in the UFC that much up until this point. Oralbai, that loss is aging really poorly, and most recently, Joel Alvarez had beat the crap out of Elvis Brenner, and that was a complete shutout, and he knocked him out. Ribovic, he's 2 years removed from one of the greatest fights I've ever seen in my life, and in the sports history objectively against Daniel Zellhuber. This was a really closely contested fight as well, and that also aged a little bit poorly. Granted, that dude just got beat up by Michael Johnson, but I mean, it's Michael Johnson, the GOAT, so we give him a pass, right? Esteban has most recently lost a fight to Nasrat Haqparast, and I repressed this memory just because Esteban lost, not because the fight was boring. I just really wanted to see Ribovic win this. Haqparast actually looked really good in that fight. Now that like it's all coming back to me, there was like a speed and power advantage that I thought was going to be on the side of Esteban Ribovic, but it was there for Haqparast. Haqparast had completely transformed his physique, and he looked like a much more motivated fighter in this one, and he beat up Esteban, and that made me sad. Both of these guys have really fan-friendly styles. Brenner is worse at taking damage than Esteban Ribovic. Esteban also hits harder and has more weapons to finish a fight. With his style, Esteban Ribovic, he's going to bring cleverness to a brawl. And he's going to make it seem like, yeah, you and I are just going to slug. But he does have like setups to try to finish the fight really early. And if you're not winning, then he can finish you. Like Terrence McKinney thought he was just going to get into a bar fight with Esteban Ribovic. Esteban Ribovic enters the pocket with 2 jabs across and then a high kick behind it. It was the first jab followed by the second jab. And that offbeat rhythm that threw off the head kicks timing that made it so that Terrence McKinney didn't even see it coming. And these types of setups exist with Esteban Ribovic and not on the side of Elvis Brenner. There's not a whole lot of trickery happening with Elvis Brenner. He's just really in there trying to throw. And Elvis Brenner just has a whole lot of heart, and that's what he brings to the fight. The thing that makes me think that Esteban Ribovic is going to win this fight via round 1 KO is that Ribovic can win a 50-50 brawl with anyone, or he can catch people in sequences as well. Brenner outlasts people who aren't as violent as he is. So Ribovic via round 1 KO is what I'm going to select. I think that we're expecting a war on paper, but it's not going to be that way. In the co-main event, we have a fight that is going to be Mateusz Rebecki. I don't know how to say it because Michael Bisping always messes me up with this. He be calling him like Roundbesky. Like, he's saying the dumbest pronunciation of Mateusz Rebecki's name. I'm just going to say Rebecki because that's how it's spelled there. I think there's even an accent somewhere over like the C or the E or something. He's going to be fighting Chris Duncan at lightweight. Rebecki frequently gives us all scares in his fights. He's meant to win very easily, and he even loses them sometimes. He lost to Diego Ferreira, and he had a near-death experience in a fight with Mictabek Oralbai, and that reflects that Mateusz Rebecki is a wee bit overrated. Mateusz is regressing, it seems like. He's getting worse at fighting versus developing over time in the UFC, and as far as unranked lightweights go, he's not really on anyone's radar because he's not winning cleanly anymore. Duncan is becoming more active with his grappling in pursuit of submissions, and he likely has the same read that Ferreira had on how to beat Mateusz Rebecki. So I'm sure that you guys saw at the very bottom that I'm going to select Duncan to win via round 2 sub, and you're like, man, what? I'm sure that some of you guys probably are tapped in and know that like this isn't a bad pick at all. Also because Duncan, he's getting better at striking too. And he's making strides towards becoming a more complete fighter. And I think that winning this fight will be what he needs to put himself on the map as far as unranked lightweights go. And he could potentially be a big dog outside the rankings if he keeps on stringing together wins like he has been. Duncan performs at a consistently mid-level, but I like his recurring output more in terms of reliability. I like it more than Mateusz Rebecki's, who we've seen have some pretty weird performances. So I'm not taking a chance here. Rebecki reminds me kind of Ludovic Klein, who also makes me nervous to favor him in his fights. So I will pick Chris Duncan via round 2 sub. And that's what I think is going to happen in the co-main event. Now we will discuss the main event, which I'm expecting to be a much better fight than people are giving it credit to be. Tatsuro Taira versus Hong Sung Park may be fight of the year, dude. I'm hyping it up right now. I don't care if I come to regret it or if my pick is wrong. We're about to get a very violent fight between two boys who are going to want to be there and who are going to want to win over each other. Tatsuro Taira, he has had a full camp. Hong Sung Park was going to fight Steve Erceg next week, I think it was. Steve Erceg has gotten his opponent replaced with Ode Osborne. And Steve Erceg is thanking God in heaven that he doesn't have to fight Hong Sung Park because this dude is dangerous. He has the coolest freaking fighter nickname too. This boy Hong Sung Park calls himself Peace of Mind. How tough is that? Something that we should definitely give more credence to is how far Korean wrestling has come. Korean MMA is like, those guys are doing it right now. Ju Sang-yu, at I think that he might even be a 55er or a 45er. Korean Conor McGregor, they call him like the baby zombie. He had that like fade back check hook knockout over Jekka Sergi. That was lit. And that guy is Korean. What I like about Hong Sung Park is he has that really clinical Korean boxing style where they're just like tough guys. They do lack defense a little bit. They can get tagged and stung, but they have really good jabs. They work combos really well on the inside and all have really good check lead hooks. And most of them are orthodox fighters. Hong Sung Park is an orthodox fighter, but he also has grappling as well as part of his skill set. He's good at wrestling. He can get takedowns himself. Whenever he does get to ground positions, or if he's chasing after scoring drops, which he's doing that a lot with his jab, because it's so stiff, or these hooks as well, just short shots. They're just dropping these people, and they're not laying out and like getting completely flatlined, but they're getting disoriented, and their brains are getting scrambled by simple punches from Hong Sung Park that he's just delivering with so much power. Heavy payload in the hands of Hong Sung Park. Very underrated power. But let's talk about that grappling. Tatsuro Taira, in his jiu-jitsu, he gets the takedowns and he takes the back. He's a back control fighter. Surprise, surprise. These are two different back control fighters. As far as the grappling goes, where they like to control is in the back sitting position. So one thing that I noticed about Tatsuro Taira, he is super motivated to get a takedown at the very opening round of a fight. At some point, you're going to get taken down by Tatsuro Taira up against the cage, most likely. How he got his first takedown against Brandon Royval was he took the back, got like to a seatbelt grip, and then he lifted his feet off of the ground and kicked off of the cage to send the momentum of both of them backwards so that he could just fall down and sit into a back take position. But Brandon Royval, he didn't believe in Taira's grappling and it didn't work on him. It was guys like this, hungry, young, explosive, like Park. He was already preparing to fight next week, and that was a really big opportunity for him as well. This is an even bigger opportunity. He wants this bad. So I think that him being on short notice is actually going to help his case. Part of me kind of felt as if Amir Albazi would have been neutralizing Tatsuro Taira in the clinch against the cage, but I think that would have been an easier fight for Tatsuro Taira than this one. Hansung Park, he likes to grapple from the dominant positions that Tatsuro Taira likes to dominate as well. So all he needs to do once he's down there is fight the hands, not get choked, maybe invert his guard and get up. And once he can do that, then he can get back on the boxing. There's a chance that he drops Tatsuro Taira on the feet before Tatsuro Taira gets the fight to the ground through a takedown. I wouldn't even rule out the possibility of Tatsuro Taira dropping Hansung Park because neither of these guys are moving their heads like crazy, but it's that power in the boxing. Hansung Park's hands are really good. Brandon Rival, he came out feigning at Tatsuro Taira in their fight, and then he realized, wow, this guy is only kicking my leg and not doing anything else. So instead of feigning, he was just going first, and he started scoring. And that's whenever he started to pull away in this fight. Hansung Park isn't going to have any type of reservations, maybe not even layering any type of feints before he just goes first as well. And I think that's what's going to be conducive to him getting an early drop, maybe many knockdowns throughout this fight. I could totally see him laying Tatsuro Taira out cold in this fight. Tatsuro Taira has some really poor boxing. As far as the stand-up for Taira, he does have the kicks, but it's only really low kicks. The boxing, he can deliver some power on occasion. But I mean, it's Carlos Hernandez that I'm using as a framework to say that that's true. Largely, it's going to be him getting beat up by strikers who are better than him, getting the takedowns, and then getting subs from mount position or back sitting. So everything that I've said compounded with the fact that Park has only been to a round 3 one time makes me think that he likely does win this fight in 3 rounds too. So that's what I'm going to select. I'm going to take the road less traveled by in this main event. I know a lot of people are like, why aren't you selecting Tatsuro Taira to win? It's because Hansung Park, man. And I think it'll all make sense very soon. So We'll see. These are all the fighters that I've selected to win on Saturday, so you can review all of the different choices that I've made here. Another thing, I flipped the orientation of my webcam too, and I think that I look a lot more handsome through the lens this way, with like the flowy side of my hair on this side of my head versus over here. I don't know, minor differences. I feel like this is like an improvement in quality. You guys can tell me what you think about this video at the very end of it, but thank you guys for watching. If you ever want to know what I do while I'm making these PowerPoint presentations, I'm listening to the Gobcast. If you don't know who Goblin is, it's a degenerate drug addict, and he has this podcast where he just like gets people to call in and tell stories about their degenerate drug use or just degeneracy in general that they're involved in, and they hash it out over an anonymous landline. And I think these stories are so funny. So yeah, go check him out. Thank you guys for making it to the end of this video as well. I love you guys so much. My goodness. You guys are like a family to me. We're kin. You and I, you viewer, you are my kin. We both bleed red. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up here. Please do like, comment, and subscribe if you made it to this point in the video. I'm gonna catch you in the next one.